The day I died was coincidentally the day of Gavin's wedding. The grand ceremony played on every phone and television. Outside my door, nurses whispered about how much they envied the bride Serena. But no one knew that to marry Gavin, I had given him my company. I sat on the windowsill and jumped. In the confusion, a heartbreaking cry rang in my ears. When I opened my eyes again, it was the familiar face of my classmate. "Wake up. Serena's crying. Go comfort her or you'll be in trouble with Gavin," my classmate teased. I looked up at Serena sitting in the back listening to my classmate's words. I was shocked I had been reborn back to my senior year of high school. Serena was a student on financial aid who transferred to our class that year. Back then I was always following Gavin, a tag-along at best, or more accurately his lapdog. I gave everything for him. When Gavin had a stomachache, I skipped class to buy him medicine. To ensure Gavin focused in class, I would get his lunch and dinner for him. It wasn't until Gavin and Serena got together that I sensed something was off. Gavin insisted that I was disgusting, and that he and Serena were just good friends. I believed him. I tried to please Gavin and extended that effort to Serena, the friend he valued so much. When Serena had her period, I tried to make her brown sugar water. When Serena was sad, I took her shopping for bags. I thought I'd done enough. Even if we weren't best friends, we were at least good friends. But I never imagined that they would accept my kindness while treating me like a clown. After graduation, Gavin said he wanted to marry me, but my father disagreed. I begged my father to let him into the company as general manager. Gavin claimed it was difficult to work without his own people, so Serena joined as his secretary. After Gavin and I got engaged, my father gradually relinquished power. Within 2 years, my father was completely sidelined by Gavin, and the company became Gavin's. At the time, I was happily dreaming of marrying Gavin, only to be sent to a mental hospital by the two of them. Being a mentally sound person in a mental hospital was torture. Everything felt out of place. The day before I jumped, I got a call from Gavin. He said that my father and I looked down on his family, treated him like a pet, and that he was going to take his revenge on me. He even told me that my father had died. My only family member was gone, and I didn't want to live in agony, so I jumped from the hospital. "That's none of my business, comfort her yourself." I opened my book, my eyes cold. My classmate was also Serena's lapdog, but because she was close to Gavin, he didn't dare offend him. So he tried to use me as an excuse to approach Serena. Without me noticing, Gavin was already in the classroom. Hearing my words, he swept all the books off my desk. I was momentarily stunned. The old me wouldn't have thought that Gavin doing that was wrong. "Can't you see Serena's in pain? Where's her brown sugar water?" I laughed. After all these years, I hadn't realized Gavin was so shameless. I said, "It's none of my business. Take care of your own girlfriend." Did I kiss Serena's mouth? Gavin didn't expect me to be so direct, and he raised his hand to slap me. It wasn't the first time, but I'd always been tolerant. I pointed at my cheek. "Slap me, go ahead and slap me. If you don't, you're not a man." Gavin's eyes widened, his anger burning brightly. I turned and left, reminding Serena as I passed her. "Look at the man you chose, he's a coward." Gavin tried to chase after me, but I had already run out. I knew that Serena wouldn't listen to me. In her eyes, Gavin was a rich young master. But no one knew that everything Gavin had was given to him by me. I had the driver come to pick me up. When I got home, I saw the nanny, Agnes, who should have been working, sitting in the living room eating melon seeds. Seeing me, Agnes's face showed disapproval. "Chloe, why are you home all of a sudden? Gavin is all alone at school, you should be with him. He doesn't have much money in his account, and it's important that he eats well during this crucial year." Her words were laughable. She was our nanny, getting paid by my family. Because I heard that she raised her son alone and couldn't afford rent in Shanghai, my father took pity on her and let them live in the guest room. I hadn't expected that they would get so greedy that they'd start to act like my in-laws. "Agnes, you are our nanny, not a guest. If I see this again, you can get out." Her face turned pale, and it took her a while to calm down. "Chloe, how can you say such a thing? I'm still your elder." After saying that, Agnes left awkwardly. I sat down and immediately opened a job posting app. I couldn't keep this mother and son around any longer. My father was away on a business trip and couldn't interfere. Just then my phone rang. It was my father. Chloe, I heard from Agnes that you suddenly came home. What happened? My face darkened. I immediately understood Agnes's intentions. Agnes had been stirring up trouble between my father and me for a while. She often used Gavin to compare my grades. Dad, the courses at school are a bit difficult, and Gavin's tutoring isn't working. I want to change to a professional tutor. Hearing that I was still interested in improving, the anger in my father's tone subsided. All right, your Uncle Lucas's son is going to teach at S University. I'll ask him. I agreed. Okay, Dad, you need to take care of yourself at work. I learned how to make a soup. I'll make it for you when you get back. My father grew increasingly pleased. After hanging up, my eyes turned cold. No wonder my father knew everything I did wrong in my past life. I thought he was investigating me. That was why our relationship became more strained, while Gavin was the peacemaker. Now it seemed that Agnes somehow got my father's private contact information and had been defaming me. Looking past my infatuation with Gavin, I was much clearer now. I went to the kitchen and asked Agnes, who was slacking off, "Was it you who called my father?" A guilty look flashed across Agnes's face, but she quickly regained her composure. I was just telling the truth. I know you don't like studying, but your family has such a big company. Your father should arrange for you to take over early. I called the butler and asked him to settle Agnes's salary and remove her immediately. Agnes looked at me with displeasure. How can a young girl be in charge of the family? As long as your father isn't here, no one can kick me out. The butler frowned, obviously not expecting her to be so arrogant. Agnes, Miss Chloe is also the owner. It's not your place to object. Then he had the security guards drag her away, and they would deposit her salary into her account later. Agnes tried to cause a scene, but she was quickly restrained by the two guards. They didn't hold her back tightly. They just stood in front of her to push her out. I was about to say something when I heard a loud roar. Gavin was back. Gavin, his eyes red, glared angrily at me. Chloe, if you don't like me, fine. You bully me at school. Why are you picking on my mother? Hearing this, Agnes grew furious and began swearing at me. A girl doing such things won't be able to marry. If you apologize to me and my son now. Before she could finish, I was too lazy to listen, and asked the guards to get them out. The butler looked at me hesitantly. Miss, should I hire 2 more nannies? I nodded. Actually, they had hired 2 nannies previously, but Agnes didn't get along with the other one. Plus, Agnes had been more diligent at the beginning, so my father and I had kept her. Thinking about that time, I rubbed my temples, my head aching. While I was thinking, the doorbell rang again. I opened the door and saw Gavin's face. I had to admit, Gavin's face was indeed handsome, with sharp features, cold and noble. You're here at the right time. Pack your things, you don't need to come here anymore. Gavin seemed to think I was playing hard to get, and looked at me with impatience. If you make a scene again, don't expect me to talk to you. I chuckled. Gavin had said that to me many times. When I chased after him, he didn't want to be seen with me in public, so he would tell me to not cause trouble. I would get angry, but that suited him perfectly. He naturally wouldn't pay me any attention. Eventually, I would come back to appease him, buy him gifts, give him money and beg for his forgiveness. To get closer to Gavin, I especially had my father transfer him to my private high school and have him tutor me. Gavin acted annoyed, but the private high school had much better teachers than Gavin. He couldn't possibly not know that, but he chose to complain while enjoying the benefits I provided. What kind of pie in the sky was so good? I stepped aside, my arms crossed. Hurry and pack up. My new tutor is coming soon. Hearing my words, Gavin froze for a moment, then strode into the guest room to pack his and his mother's things and leave. As soon as he left, I immediately shut the door. After resting at home for half a day, I took the car to school the next morning. It was the time when everyone was entering the school gates. In the past, when they saw Gavin and me step out of the Rolls-Royce together, they thought Gavin was the real wealthy one and I was just a servant. But today, I wouldn't let that rumor continue. I got out of the car, and the driver quickly left without Gavin in sight. Seeing this, many classmates looked surprised. Chloe, why didn't Gavin come today? Did he take a leave? classmate came to ask me. Previously, when Gavin wanted to take a day off while tutoring me, I was the one who made the request. At first, the teacher didn't say anything to Gavin out of respect for me. Later, when Gavin's grades improved, the teacher turned a blind eye. My eyebrows curved into a smile. I felt much better after not liking Gavin, because I didn't need to think about what to do for him today. How would I know what he's doing? I'm not his stomach worm. I ignored them and went straight to the classroom. It wasn't until the first class was about to start that Gavin arrived, looking pale. I glanced at him and sneered inwardly. Gavin always said that I forced him to go to school with me in the morning. But it only took 15 minutes to drive from my home to school. Gavin would stay up late to make things for Serena, which would cause him to sleep late and wake up late. So I had to wake him up in the morning and let him catch up on sleep in the car. As for tutoring me, that never happened. I only wanted to be with Gavin back then. He hated me, so there was no interaction apart from being in the same room. Every time the results came out, he would say that I was too stupid and didn't try hard enough. He used that to cover for himself in front of my father. Before I died in my last life, I never realized that this was Gavin's way of undermining me. He would undermine me while giving me a glimmer of hope, keeping me on a string, making me waste my thoughts and emotions focusing only on him. I forgot that I should have had other friends and family. Collecting my thoughts, I started listening to the teacher. But I couldn't help but overhear Gavin and Serena chatting in the back. Serena was very worried about Gavin since he came so late today. Why did you come so late today? I thought something happened to you. Gavin was always very gentle with Serena. It's nothing. I just woke up late this morning while making something I promised for you. I rolled my eyes in the front and continued listening to the teacher. All morning I didn't pay attention to those two. As soon as the morning classes were over, I ran to the cafeteria. The private high school cafeteria didn't require students to rush to get food. They offered 3 tiers. The first floor was specifically for students on financial aid but with good grades. The food there was cheaper. The second floor was for students from wealthy families. The chefs were Michelin-starred. As for the third floor, it was for students with allergies or cleanliness issues, who had their own chefs prepare the food. I took the food I wanted and started eating. In the past, I would have packed it specially for Gavin because he didn't like eating in the cafeteria, which he thought was discriminatory. He thought they looked down on them. Later, after Serena came and their relationship improved, I would have to pack 2 portions. Looking back now, it was just ridiculous. Those two were probably laughing at me behind my back. After I finished eating, I returned to the classroom. I noticed that Gavin and Serena were still in the classroom. Seeing me come back empty-handed, Gavin looked at me unhappily. Where's the food for Serena and me? I shrugged, looking speechless. It's in the cafeteria if you want it, go get it yourselves. Gavin glared at me menacingly, and then went to the cafeteria with Serena. It wasn't until class was about to start that Gavin came back with something. Serena looked very aggrieved, with red eyes, obviously having cried. Chloe, I considered you a friend. Why did you play us like that? Gavin also clenched his fists, gritting his teeth at me. Chloe, if you don't apologize, don't expect me to forgive you. After saying that, he returned to his seat. I was puzzled. I just went to lunch, said one word to them, and now I was playing them? It wasn't until I saw the class group chat that I understood the joke they had made. It turned out that they had gone to where I used to sit to look for the food I packed for them. But there was nothing there. The two thought the cafeteria cleaning staff had thrown away the food, so they went to find the cafeteria manager. The manager knew my identity, and also knew that I liked Gavin. So he naturally helped them by having his staff check the security footage. After watching it, they realized that I had not packed any food for them. The manager didn't know what was going on, so he said, "Maybe Miss Chloe was joking with you." So, they understood that to mean I was playing with them. The class group was full of people scolding me. These people pretended to despise me, but still maintained a superficial peace with me. But in the class group chat, they were all scolding me unreservedly. They were spreading rumors to slander me, and Serena then said lightly after they had finished slandering me, "You shouldn't say that, Chloe doesn't have it easy, although I don't know how she got into this school. But poor people also have dignity just like me. You guys shouldn't talk about her anymore." I had never looked at this class group before, because I felt it wasted my time chasing after Gavin. Now that I saw it, I understood why many people in this class thought I was the daughter of a servant. If you say I didn't pack food for Gavin and Serena, there's a big Buddha in Sichuan. You should buy a ticket now, go there and sit in front of it. Those who said this didn't react at first. After they did, they began to swear. You're the daughter of Gavin's family's maid. It's your responsibility to get food for them. Exactly. If you scold us, be careful, I'll have Gavin fire your parents. Then you'll have to drop out of school. I typed a few more words. Okay, you have him fire me. If he can't fire me, then you're not a man. At this moment Gavin appeared. Alright everyone, don't fight. This Friday night is Serena's birthday, don't forget to attend. After Gavin changed the topic, these classmates no longer focused on me. I thought of the things in my past life. For Serena's birthday, I sent her expensive dresses, and I even paid for the birthday celebration. But they were not grateful at all, instead they said I looked down on them. I paid Gavin 100,000 a month to tutor me. Fortunately, I was reborn early, and he only tutored me for 4 months. If Gavin wanted to pay for this birthday party for Serena, he would probably have to use up all his savings. I lost interest as they discussed Gavin and Serena in the group, closed my phone and started listening to the class. When I got home, there was someone there that I hadn't expected. Jean, what are you doing back from overseas? I was a little surprised. Jean and I had grown up together as childhood friends, but he was much smarter than me. While I was still busy with elementary school, he had already started self-studying junior high school material. By the time I was about to graduate elementary school, he had already graduated from junior high and gone to high school. Later, when I was in high school, I heard that he had already received his doctorate and become a professor. When I was preparing Gavin's wedding and sending invitations to Jean, I learned that the prodigy had become a monk. The Liu family had always been one of the top families in the capital, with members in both business and politics. And the heir Jean was the one everyone expected to take over. But no one knew that he would eventually become a monk at a Buddhist temple in the capital. Some people jokingly called him the most valuable Buddhist monk, while others didn't understand. Uncle Xiao told me that you wanted to change tutors. I happen to be coming to your high school to teach, so I'll tutor you as well. I was a little surprised. Although my father had mentioned it, I didn't think it was possible. Firstly, the Liu family was much stronger and busier than the Xiao family, so how could Jean have time to come here? Secondly, although Jean and I had grown up together as childhood friends, there was now a significant distance between us. It was like having a best friend since childhood, who then got married, and naturally couldn't spend as much time with me. Wouldn't this be too much trouble for you? Jean still patted my head like he used to do when we were kids. It's no trouble at all. Let's start today. I've prepared a few questions to see your basic level. The thought of making a fool of myself in front of someone both familiar and strange made me a little awkward. It's too late today, how about tomorrow? I think tomorrow would be a good day. Jean ignored me and pulled me straight into my room. Not just tomorrow, today and the day after are all good days. You're about to graduate, we can't slow down. After joking around with Jean for a while, I felt much more comfortable with him. And the consequence of feeling comfortable was that I was no longer afraid to make a fool of myself in front of him. The questions he gave me felt both familiar and foreign. I wanted to start writing, but I didn't know where to begin. Jean looked at my blank paper without any sign of anger or impatience. Don't rush, take your time. Write down all the thoughts you come up with, organize them. It doesn't matter if you can't write the answer. Seeing how gentle Jean was, I thought of Gavin and felt an urge to cry. But I held back and followed Jean's instructions, writing down all my thoughts. Just as I was about to finish, the new nanny came upstairs. Miss, young Master Liu, someone outside wants to see the Mississippi. I frowned. I didn't have any friends at school because of the stupid things I had done. As for the friends I had since childhood, we had grown apart, they wouldn't suddenly visit me. Jean frowned slightly, but his tone was still gentle. Do you want to go see who it is? I shook my head. I had a feeling of who it was. Jean, how about you go take a look? Anyway, those friends of mine know, if it's them, invite them in, if not, just forget it. Jean's face lit up with a smile, probably wanting to see his old friends as well. Unfortunately, his goal was not achieved. When Jean came back, His face was not as pleasant as before. How could you have fallen for such a thing? I was a little surprised that Jean used such crude language. He was usually very refined. Wasn't it because of his face? Now I've seen clearly. Jean was still looking at me with some doubt. I understood his confusion. After all, Jean was much better looking than Gavin. Although Gavin was handsome, he was nothing compared to Jean. Jean not only looked better than Gavin, but his aura was also much more noble. It was like comparing a white flower to a rose. I stared at Jean, smiled awkwardly, and cursed Gavin countless times in my heart. Jean, of course, he's not as good looking as you. I was blinded, I'll never make that mistake again. Finally, Jean stopped paying attention to that matter. However, today was definitely the most serious I had been while doing my homework. The next day, I was still a little groggy when I was woken up. Jean also had to go to school to register, so he took me with him. I laid down in the back and continued to doze off for a while. When I woke up, I realized it was already 9 o'clock. Jean, why didn't you wake me up? Aren't you going to be late for registration? Jean shook his head, opened the car door for me, and took me to the principal's office. I was confused. Wasn't this asking me to turn myself in? After I went to the principal's office, I learned that Jean was going to be our class's homeroom teacher, but he wouldn't neglect his other duties. The principal was happy, I was happy, and Jean was also happy. He was still talking to the principal when I went back to the classroom. These past few days, Gavin had little time to rest because he was looking for a new place and traveling a long way to school. When he got to school, he would lean on his desk and sleep during the classes he thought he knew. The teachers turned a blind eye and didn't intend to do anything. I started to focus in class. Although people were still gossiping behind my back, I didn't care. In the afternoon, Jean came in and introduced himself, paying special attention to Gavin. As soon as class was over, after the teacher left, Gavin walked up to me. What's your relationship with that Mr. Liu? Why did you come together this morning? The surrounding classmates also perked up their ears, wanting to listen. What kind of relationship could they have? People who are better connected than us. She used to latch onto an old man, and now she's latching onto a new teacher. I wonder if the new teacher knows that Chloe is a second-hand good. If he knew, he'd definitely be disgusted to death. They're more powerful than us. This person might be poor, but they are quite ambitious. I looked coldly at their slander. Serena stood out and shielded me. Oh, don't say that. Chloe must also have a reason for doing this. Her words directly nailed me to the pillar of shame. I folded my arms and watched these people with amusement. It's none of your business what kind of person I am, but as your classmate, it's necessary for me to keep tabs on your language. After I finished speaking, I pressed my phone and sent the recording directly to the school group chat. Someone immediately rushed forward to snatch my phone and delete the recording. Before they could become complacent, Jean ran over from the nearby office, looking at them with a frosty expression. Although they were the same age, the difference in status and aura was insurmountable. Seeing Jean come over, those who had been so arrogant were immediately like eggplant touched by frost. I didn't know what Jean said to them, but when they came back they didn't even have the courage to make eye contact with me. Only Gavin and Serena glared at me intensely. I shrugged and sent a message to Jean, inviting him out to dinner. Chloe, are you going to Serena's birthday party today? A classmate who I didn't have any past with asked. I shook my head. Serena's birthday banquet was at an international hotel, where a private room costs tens of thousands of yuan per hour. I already have plans, so I won't go. Gavin looked at me blankly, not knowing what he was thinking. After school, I went to find Jean and we went to a hotel for dinner. Jean knew what had happened during the day and was still quite worried. If you have any problems, tell me and I'll take care of them for you. I nodded heavily. Don't worry, Mr. Liu. Now that I have someone to rely on, I will definitely use it. Just as I was talking, my phone rang. It was Gavin. I directly blocked his number. After dinner with Jean, we went home together. In the car, I was added to a group without Gavin or Serena by someone I didn't know. It turned out that after the banquet, when it was time to pay, the waiter said it was 2 million, and Gavin's face had changed. He had wanted to find me, but I hadn't come at all. So he had no choice but to pay with his own money. The problem was, he didn't have that much money. In addition to the money I had given him in the past, and his mother's savings, he was still short by more than 300,000. For the sake of face, Gavin had taken out a credit card for over 300,000. Chloe, didn't Gavin say you were the servant's daughter? Yeah, before I saw you both get out of a Maybach and he sent the location of yours. Right, especially the gifts he gave Serena. The materials were quite expensive. Although I didn't want to pay attention to them, I also didn't want Gavin to continue to have a good time. In my past life I ended up in this situation. In this life I would naturally take my revenge. Are you all stupid? Why don't you ask Gavin and me which one of us is actually from which family? Gavin was the son of our nanny. I liked him, so I had him transferred here. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have the chance to meet you all. The group fell silent for a while, probably because they had gone to ask their parents. A moment later the group was in an uproar again. I asked. Chloe's family really is rich, and our new teacher Mr. Liu is also very powerful. Damn it, weren't we played by the son of a servant for 3 years? No, I can't swallow this. I looked at their messages and closed my phone. Serena was loyal to Gavin back then because of my contributions. Serena was only transferred to this school because of her good grades. If she had studied hard, she might have been able to make a name for herself. It's a pity she's gone astray now. On Monday when I arrived at the class I was the last one. As soon as I got back to my seat, Gavin came to me with a cold face. He wanted to take me out to talk, obviously still wanting to save some face. But I didn't want to humor him anymore. When I liked him he was a shining treasure in my eyes. But now that I didn't like him he was just a weed by the roadside. Whether he was trampled on or cherished it had nothing to do with me. What's there to talk about? Just say it here. It seemed that only at this moment did Gavin realize that I really didn't like him anymore. You really don't like me anymore? I smiled, the smile full of sarcasm. Are you stupid? Or you can ask every classmate around you. The whole school knows that I like you. Gavin's eyes lit up again, wanting to reach out to pull me. I moved away and turned to Serena. I know that you and Serena are together, you don't have to worry, I don't like you anymore anyway. Gavin's face turned pale. He kept explaining. Serena and I are just good friends, we aren't having a relationship, you misunderstood. I shrugged and looked at him. For Serena's birthday you gave her a 300,000 yuan bracelet, but you gave me a 99 yuan pin. On regular holidays you took her to places that cost tens of thousands per person, but all you would do is send me a happy holiday message. And when it rained and you didn't have an umbrella, you would take off your clothes to cover Serena's head, and sit in my car without my permission. And when I was unwell, you would have me buy medicine for Serena and call a doctor, but for me, you would just tell me to bear it for a while. Listening to what I was saying, Gavin's face became increasingly pale. I knew that he didn't regret that he was only just now realizing he loved me, but because he lost his ATM and nanny. Listening to this, Chloe is simply invincible, giving both money and service. Yeah, isn't this just a sucker? Giving both money and service. It's a pity that Gavin didn't cherish it, otherwise he would have been able to climb the social ladder. I smiled bitterly. In my past life, wasn't that what Gavin had succeeded in doing? Serena also looked at Gavin in disbelief. She obviously hadn't expected that the status between Gavin and me had been reversed. The reason why she was willing to be with Gavin regardless of her reputation was because I was easy to bully, and because Gavin was from a wealthy family. When a person is too poor, they will hold on to any straw they can find. The class bell rang and Jean came over. I had already previewed the content of these courses yesterday, so after Jean re-explained it, I understood everything. However, behind me I often felt a gaze, as if they wanted to pierce right through me. I didn't want to continue paying attention to Gavin, but the nosy students in the class obviously wouldn't let go of such big gossip. The most important thing was that they had been confused for 3 whole years, as if they had been played for 3 years. Their families were well off, at most they would encounter some problems in the business world, those were just old acquaintances. But what was Gavin? In just a few days Gavin's family background was completely dug out. Gavin's father was a gambler, and after losing all of the family's money, he was killed by someone he owed money to. And Gavin's mother, Agnes, had become a mistress because she saw that Gavin's father had money. But she hadn't expected that she would lose her backer as soon as she got on board, so she could only leave with her son. As for Gavin's father's ex-wife, she was also very capable. After Gavin's father died, she left with the compensation money. Agnes and Gavin were kicked out. No one could prove that Gavin was his father's son. Everywhere they went, people would find out that they were a mistress and her son. Growing up in this environment, Gavin had developed a self-deprecating and sensitive, but also arrogant personality. Until Agnes found someone she liked. She learned my family was looking for a nanny and signed up successfully. She also brought her son along. Knowing that I was my family's only daughter, Agnes set her sights on me. So when she saw that I liked Gavin, she would often subtly manipulate me, making me put Gavin first. After they were kicked out, Agnes returned to her old life and became someone else's mistress. This news quickly spread like wildfire. Gavin felt like everyone was looking at him and whispering, making him scared. Even Serena was slowly distancing herself from him. But how could Gavin possibly let go of Serena? He still owed $300,000 on his credit card. Even after selling the things I had given him, it was just barely enough. But they no longer had a way to pay their living expenses. I witnessed them arguing many times. The once fairy tale couple had become a pair of resentful lovers. Both of them were regretting their actions and wanted to study hard, but they also knew that it would be impossible to continue learning here. So they transferred schools soon after. I felt much more relaxed after they transferred schools. With Jean's tutoring, my grades improved a lot. My father was still abroad on a business trip, but he would occasionally give me video calls to praise Jean. "Dad, are you hiding something from me? Why are you always praising Jean? Am I not your daughter anymore?" My father laughed. I hadn't seen him so happy in a long time. "Isn't it because his tutoring has improved your grades so much? I need to thank him." I pouted. "I will invite him for dinner." "Dad, I will thank him, don't worry." As soon as I finished speaking, Jean stood behind me and leaned down. I turned around and could almost feel Jean's breath. I quickly turned back. Unknowingly, my relationship with Jean seemed to have changed. After I went to college, he also resigned from high school and began to take over the Liu family business. After I went to college, I saw Agnes a few times. She was working as a cleaner in the school. "Chloe, Auntie Agnes was wrong. Auntie Agnes shouldn't have done that. Can you please forgive Auntie Agnes?" "If you don't want to forgive me, that's fine, but Gavin is innocent, and his illness has gotten so severe that he can't go to school anymore." Some classmates thought that I knew Agnes. After I explained myself, I turned and left. Gavin's father had cheated and gambled with Agnes. His ex-wife hated him very much. However, Gavin's father had already died, so she took her revenge on Agnes. Wherever Agnes went, the title of mistress would be stuck to her. It was only in my family that no one dared to do anything to her. I brushed Agnes's hand away and reported the matter to the school leaders. Agnes was no longer seen at school. Until a long time later, when Jean and I were shopping, we saw a hunched homeless man picking up trash. His profile looked a lot like Gavin. Extra. After I graduated from college, Jean proposed to me and I said yes. On my wedding night, I had a dream. My soul floated back to my past life and saw what happened after my death. After I jumped, someone was yelling heartbreakingly. It was Jean. I didn't even know when he had come back. After Jean saw me jump, he even wanted to jump down, but the police and firefighters restrained him. Looking at his bald head, I felt like laughing and crying at the same time. Everyone said that I had committed suicide, but Jean didn't believe it. No one who was in their right mind would suddenly want to commit suicide. So, he investigated everything. At that time, Gavin and Serena were already regarded as a fairy tale couple by many, even more famous than top celebrities in the entertainment industry. Jean used his abilities along with Gavin's father's ex-wife to spread Gavin's identity to the public. The Xiao Group's stock dropped by 10 points all at once. They wanted to use a celebrity scandal to cover up their own scandals, but Jean didn't give them a chance. Few people in the capital's Liu family could afford to offend him. Jean not only joined Gavin's rivals in the business world to deal with Gavin, but he also arranged a mistress for Gavin, making him follow his father's old path. Jean knew that the information he had uncovered was not enough to put Gavin in jail. Because I had willingly given the company to Gavin, and the mental health assessment couldn't be done due to my death. Therefore, Jean stopped at nothing to make sure Gavin was destroyed. After Serena found out that Gavin had a mistress, she began to tear his hair out and accidentally miscarried their child in a fit of anger. And under the encouragement of her wealthy friends, she started a live stream and talked about the past. To retaliate against Gavin, she exaggerated many things and of course exonerated herself. Gavin's once pure image no longer existed. Under the double blows of his wife and his rivals, he became mentally unstable and went into a mental hospital. As for Serena, her health also deteriorated, and she died not long after. The dream ended and I opened my eyes, looking at the chiseled face next to me. I hugged his warm body tightly. The end.